Good evening, guys. Just giving you an update on what's going on after hours regarding DWAC, Twitter, CFVI, PHUN, Mark, and I left out Tesla, but it's actually running too. So hopefully you are watching this before Monday market open, because I think that these five and Tesla are going to have some serious effects due to what's going on in after hours. So let's get into it. Remember, nothing I say is financial advice. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Okay, guys, so I'm going to start with a couple of articles. The first one is the reason that these tickers are running and Twitter is falling in the after hours. It's because Elon Musk sends a letter to Twitter terminating the $44 billion buyout bid. Update: Twitter to sue to enforce the deal, guys. An attorney for Elon Musk sent a letter to the Twitter board Friday morning informing them of Musk's intention to terminate his $44 billion buyout of Twitter due to alleged lies about the number of bots, spam accounts, and other issues. Musk has not directly commented on the termination as of publication of this article. Twitter Chairman Brett Taylor responds: the Twitter board is committed to closing the transaction on the price and terms agreed upon with Mr. Musk and plans to pursue legal action to enforce the merger agreement. We are confident we will prevail in the Delaware Court of Chancery. Brett Taylor, that's exactly what he just said. That's just showing his tweet, guys. So, trending: Elon Musk sends letter to Twitter terminating $44 billion buyout bid. And another Twitter executive, Tony Hill, commented mocking Musk: just literally canceled my mortgage. Really happy I don't have to pay that anymore. The letter is posted at the SEC website and is presented in full below, guys. So, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but everything I'm saying, you can probably listen to this in podcast form if you want to do yard work or the gym or whatever this weekend. So here we go. The letter is addressed to Twitter Inc. and it says: Dear Ms. Gad, we refer to the agreement and plan of merger by and among X Holdings Inc., X Holdings 2 Inc., and Twitter Inc. dated as of April 25th, 2022, the merger agreement, and our letter to you dated as of June 6, 2022. The June 6th letter, as further described below. Mr. Musk is terminating the merger agreement because Twitter is in material breach of multiple provisions of that agreement, appears to have made false and misleading representations upon which Mr. Musk relied when entering into the merger agreement, and is likely to suffer a company material adverse effect, as that term is defined in the merger agreement. While Section 6.4 of the merger agreement requires Twitter to provide Mr. Musk and his advisors all data and information that Mr. Musk requests for any reasonable business purposes related to the consumption of the transaction, Twitter has not compiled with its contractual obligations. For nearly 2 months, Mr. Musk has sought the data and information necessary to make an independent assessment of the prevalence of fake or spam accounts on Twitter's platform. Our letter to you, dated May 25th, 2022, the May 25th letter. This information is fundamental to Twitter's business and financial performance and is necessary to consummate the transaction contemplated by the merger agreement, because it is needed to ensure Twitter's satisfaction of the conditions to closing to facilitate Mr. Musk's financing and financial planning for the transaction, and to engage in transition planning for the business. Twitter has failed or refused to provide this information. Sometimes Twitter has ignored Mr. Musk's requests. Sometimes it has rejected them for reasons that appear to be unjustified. And sometimes it has claimed to comply while giving Mr. Musk incomplete or unusable information. Mr. Musk and his financial advisors at Morgan Stanley have been requesting critical information from Twitter as far back as May 9, 2022, and repeatedly since then on the relationship between Twitter's disclosed MDAU figures and the prevalence of false or spam accounts on the platform. If there were ever any doubt as to the nature of these information requests, the May 25th letter made clear that Mr. Musk's goal was to understand how many of Twitter's claimed MDAUs were in fact fake or spam accounts. That letter noted that item 1.03 to 1.13 of the diligence request list contain high priority requests for enterprise data and other information intended to enable Mr. Musk and his advisors to make an independent assessment of the prevalence of fake or spam accounts on Twitter's platform. The letter then provided Twitter with a detailed list of requests to this effect. Since then, Mr. Musk has provided numerous additional follow-up requests, all aimed at filling the gaps in the incomplete information that Twitter provided in response to his broader request for information. Relating to Twitter's reports, MDAU counts and reports estimates of false and spam accounts. For example, in our letter to you dated June 29, 2022, the June 29th letter, we referenced Mr. Musk's request in the May 25th letter for information that would allow him to make independent assessment of the prevalence of fake accounts, fake or spam accounts on Twitter's platform, because Twitter, by its own admission, provided only incomplete data that was not sufficient to perform such an independent assessment. 2. The June 29th letter endeavored to be more specific and to reduce the burden of the original request by identifying a specific subset of highly priority information responsive to Mr. Musk's prior requests for Twitter to immediately make available. Mr. Musk sought the same information in letters dated June 6th, June 17th, and June 29th. In each of these letters, Mr. Musk referenced his information rights under Section 6.4 of the merger agreement. Twitter has thus been on notice of the information sought by Mr. Musk and the contractual basis for these requests for 2 months. For the past month, Mr. Musk has been clear that he views Twitter's non-responsiveness as a material breach of the merger agreement, giving him the right to terminate the merger agreement if uncured. See June 6, 2022, explaining that Twitter was refusing to comply with its obligations under the merger agreement. Thus, Mr. Musk has been clear about his requests, his right to seek such information, and his view regarding Twitter's material breach of the merger agreement. 2. See your letter to us dated June 20th, 2022, noting that the information Twitter was agreeing to provide was insufficient to perform the spam analysis that Mr. Musk purports to wish to do. Daily measures of MDAU for the past 8 quarters. On June 17, 2022, the June 17th letter, Mr. Musk reiterated his request for access to the sample set used and calculations performed, as well as any related reports or analysis to support Twitter's representation that fewer than 5% of its MDAUs are false or spam accounts. To that end, Mr. Musk requested that Twitter provide daily measures of MDAU for the previous 8 quarters and through the present. This information is derivative of the information Mr. Musk first sought in Section 1.01 to 1.03 of the May 29th diligent request list. Although Twitter has provided certain summary data regarding the MDAU calculations, Twitter has not provided the complete daily measures as requested. 4. Board materials related to Twitter's MDAU calculations in the June 17th letter. Mr. Musk requested a variety of board material and communications related to Twitter's MDAU metric, its calculation of the number of spam and false accounts, its disclosed of the MDAU metric, and the company's disclosure of the number of spam accounts on the platform. Twitter has provided an incomplete data set in response to this request and has not provided information sufficient to enable Mr. Musk to make an independent assessment on Twitter's board and management's understanding of its MDAU metric. Materials related to Twitter's financial condition. Mr. Musk is entitled under, this is 5 by the way, under Section 6.4 of the merger agreement to all information concerning the business of the company for any reasonable business purposes related to the consummation of the transactions. And under Section 6.11 of the merger agreement to information reasonably requested in connection with his efforts to secure the debt financing necessary to consummate the transaction. To that end, Mr. Musk requested on June 17th a variety of board materials, including a working bottoms-up financial model for 2022, a budget for 2022, an updated draft plan or budget, and a working copy of Goldman Sachs' valuation model underlying its fairness opinion. Twitter has provided only a PDF copy of Goldman Sachs' final board presentation. In short, Twitter has not provided information that Mr. Musk has requested for nearly 2 months, notwithstanding his repeated detailed clarifications intended to simplify Twitter's identification, collection, and disclosure of the most relevant information sought in Mr. Musk's original requests. While Twitter has provided some information, that information has come with strings attached. Use limitations or other artificial formatting features which has rendered some of the information minimally useful to Mr. Musk and his advisors. For example, when Twitter finally provided access to the 8 developer APIs first explicitly requested by Mr. Musk in the May 25th letter, those APIs contained a rate limit lower than what Twitter provides to its largest enterprise customer. Twitter only offered to provide Mr. Musk with the same level of access as some of its customers after we explained that throttling the rate limit prevented Mr. Musk and his advisors from performing the analysis that he wished to conduct in any reasonable period of time. Additionally, those APIs contained an artificial cap on the number of queries that Mr. Musk and his team can run regardless of the rate limit, an issue that initially prevented Mr. Musk and his advisors from completing an analysis of the data in any reasonable period of time. Mr. Musk raised this issue as soon as he became aware of it in the first paragraph on the June 29th letter. We have just been informed by our data experts that Twitter has placed an artificial cap on the number of searches our experts can perform with this data, which is now preventing Mr. Musk and his team from doing their analysis. That cap was not removed until July 6th after Mr. Musk demanded its removal for a second time. Based on the foregoing refusal to provide information that Mr. Musk has been requesting since May 9, 2022, Twitter is in breach of Sections 6.4 and 6.11 of the merger agreement. Despite public speculation on this point, Mr. Musk did not waive his rights to review Twitter's data and information simply because he chose not to seek this data and information before entering into the merger agreement. In fact, he negotiated access and information rights within the merger agreement precisely so that he could review data and information that is important to Twitter's business before financing and completing the transaction. As Twitter has been on notice of its breach since at least June 6, 2022, any cure period afforded to Twitter under the merger agreement has now lapsed. Accordingly, Mr. Musk hereby exercises X Holdings I Inc.'s right to terminate the merger agreement and abandon the transaction contemplated thereby, and this letter constitutes formal notice of X Holdings I Inc.'s termination of the merger agreement pursuant to Section 8.1 DI thereof. In addition to the foregoing, Twitter is in breach of the merger agreement because the merger agreement appears to contain materially inaccurate representations. Specifically in the merger agreement, Twitter represented that no documents that Twitter filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission since January 1st, 2022, including any untrue statements of a material fact, Section 4.6a. Twitter has repeatedly made statements in such filing regarding the portion of its MDAUs that are false or spam, including statements that we have performed an internal review of a sample of accounts and estimated that the average of false or spam accounts during the first quarter of 2022 represented fewer than 5% of our MDAUs during the quarter. And after we determine an account is spam, malicious, automation, or fake, we stop counting it in our MDAUs or other related metrics. Mr. Musk relied on this representation in the merger agreement and Twitter's numerous public statements regarding false and spam accounts in its publicly filed SEC documents. When agreeing to enter into the merger agreement, Mr. Musk has the right to seek rescission of the merger agreement in the event these material representations are determined to be false. Although Twitter has not yet provided complete information to Mr. Musk that would enable him to do so, to do a complete and comprehensive review of spam and fake accounts on Twitter's platform, he has been able to partially and preliminarily analyze the accuracy of Twitter's disclosure regarding its MDAUs. While this analysis remains ongoing, all indications suggest that several of Twitter's public disclosures regarding its MDAUs are either false or materially misleading. First, although Twitter has consistently represented in securities filings that fewer than 5% of its MDAUs are false or spam accounts, based on the information provided by Twitter to date, it appears that Twitter is dramatically understating the proportion of spam and false accounts represented in its MDAU count. Preliminary analysis by Mr. Musk advisors of the information provided by Twitter to date caused Mr. Musk to strongly believe that the proportion of false and spam accounts included in the reported MDAU count is wildly higher than 5%. Second, Twitter's disclosure that it ceases to count fake or spam users in its MDAU when it determines that those users are fake appears to be false. Instead, we understand, based on Twitter's representations during a June 30th, 2022 call with us, that Twitter includes accounts that have been suspended and thus are known to be fake or spam in its quarterly MDAU count, even when it is aware that the suspended accounts were included in MDAU for that quarter. Last, Twitter has represented that it is continually seeking to improve our ability to estimate the total number of spam accounts and eliminate them from the calculation of our MDAU. But Twitter's process for calculating its MDAU and the percentage of MDAU compromised of non-monetizable spam accounts appears to be arbitrary and ad hoc, disclosing that Twitter has a reasoned process for calculating MDAU when the opposite is true would be false and misleading. Twitter's representation in the merger agreement regarding the accuracy of its SEC disclosures relating to false and spam accounts may have also caused or is reasonably likely to result in a company material adverse effect, which may form an additional basis for terminating the merger agreement while Mr. Musk and his advisors continue to investigate the exact nature and extent of this event. Mr. Musk has reason to believe that the true number of false or spam accounts on Twitter's platform is substantially higher than the amount of less than 5% represented by Twitter in its SEC filings. Twitter's true MDAU count is a key component of the company business, given that approximately 90% of its revenue comes from advertisements. For this reason, to the extent that Twitter has underrepresented the number of false or spam accounts on its platform, that may constitute a company material adverse effect under Section 7.2(bi) of the merger agreement. Mr. Musk is also examining the company's recent financial performance and revised outlook, and is considering whether the company's declining business prospects and financial outlook constitute a company material adverse effect, giving Mr. Musk a separate and distinct basis for determining the merger agreement. Finally, Twitter did not comply with its obligation under Section 6.1 of the merger agreement to seek and obtain consent before deviating from its obligation to conduct its business in the ordinary course and preserve substantially intact and material components of its current business organization. Twitter's conduct in firing two key high-ranking employees, its revenue product lead, and the general manager of consumer, as well as announcing on July 7th that it was laying off a third of its talent acquisition team, implicates the ordinary course provisions. Twitter has also instituted a general hiring freeze, which extends even to reconsideration of outstanding job offers. Moreover, 3 executives have resigned from Twitter since the merger agreement was signed: the head of data science, the vice president of Twitter service, and the vice president of product management for health, conservation, and growth. The company has not received parents' consent for changes in the conduct of its business, including for the specific changes listed above. The company's actions therefore constitute a material breach of Section 6.1 of the merger agreement. Accordingly, for all of these reasons, Mr. Musk hereby exercises X Holdings 1, Inc.'s right to terminate the merger agreement and abandon the transaction completely. Thereby, and this letter constitutes formal notice of X Holding I, Inc., termination of the merger agreement pursuant to Section 8.1 DI thereof. Sincerely, Mike Ringler, Skadden Arps, Slate, Mayer, and Flom, LLP. Okay, guys, so basically what I just read to you is the termination letter that was filed with the SEC from Mr. Musk's attorney. And it appears from this letter and from what I can tell that everything that Mr. Musk has been saying regarding the bots that are on Twitter and the fact that it's very misleading because it falsely increases the share value, and also it's very misleading to the advertisers if they're saying that they have X amount of users when really their calculations for bots only being 5% is inaccurate, and it could be much, much higher. So guys, ultimately, from what it sounds like, the true value of Twitter would be grossly misrepresented due to the fabrications, and it seems like they're withholding the true number of bots because they don't want to disclose that, as it would probably affect ad revenue as well as stock price. Because think about it, if Twitter has significantly less users than it's stating, like true users, meaning actual people, not bots, then that's a problem. If it's grossly misleading that number, guys, in many aspects, and it would deem the share price and the negotiated price that Mr. Musk agreed to pay for Twitter to be grossly overvalued. So there's a lot of concerns running through my head regarding the stock price and its true value. And I've kind of been wondering this all along when it first started coming out, but now it appears that through what Mr. Musk, Elon, has been able to find out on his own, despite Twitter's complete disregard for his asking for those numbers, he has strong reason to believe that, that he's correct, that it is grossly misrepresented. And that's a major problem, guys. And that is definitely going to have an effect on the stock price. So there was another article that I was going to go over, but I think I'm going to make a separate video for that regarding whether or not DWAC is a buy right now. And I'll do that over the weekend because this video is going to get long, and I'd rather show you guys the charts and stuff right now so you know what to look for, because I think that it's very important you see that. Okay, let me bring those up. So stay tuned for video number 2. Guys, here we have the 6 charts that I'm focusing on that are being affected by this news. They are Twitter, Tesla, DWAC, CFVI, Mark, and PHUN. And here's the lowdown on H1 and Y. So clearly Twitter is the only one that is down in the after hours, and that's because of Elon trying to back out of this deal now, guys, and sending that notification. So obviously that has taken a negative toll on the price of Twitter. And I would be looking at this on Monday as a potential short play. However, if it gets to a certain point, it may be really cheap and an opportunity to go long, but I would be very careful trying to go long on it, right now, because I think it has a lot further to go depending on what happens on Monday. Again, remember the after hours is, especially on a Friday, a lot of people are not paying attention to the market. So the volatility and the sell and buy orders just are not there, guys, to get the full effect. So definitely, I think Monday is going to be wild for all of these tickers. But then Tesla's next. And obviously, Tesla's up in the after hours because all of the Tesla bulls are probably very, very excited by this news, because they felt that Elon purchasing Twitter took away from his ability to run Tesla. And now they get their CEO back, and just with his primary focus being on Tesla. So you can look for this to continue running on Monday. DWAC. Well, obviously, guys, DWAC is up because it took a beating hard on the news that Elon was buying Twitter, because it gave Twitter the ability to do what DWAC is doing as far as allowing freedom of speech and trying to make it, fair grounds for everybody to be able to say what they want without being penalized for it or being completely removed from the platform. DWAC, now that Twitter's out of the picture, can make a nice run. And guys, DWAC is very heavily shorted and has the ability to run huge. If you look, let's see, does that give it to me? I'm trying to show you that the high from, I think it's, no, sorry, I don't have it in this chart because I just grabbed some charts that were on my screen and they're not in the right format for the 1 year, guys, because but I will show you at the end of this how high DWAC can go. CFVI is kind of partnering with Trump and Truth Social as far as Rumble, because there's some kind of deal with Trump and Rumble, and CFVI is the SPAC that's taking Rumble public, guys. So expect to see some movement there to the upside, and a continuation with these running, I 100% expect them to continue running Monday. So expect to see this one running with it to some extent. However, it is still a SPAC and I'm not familiar with it. So I really don't know how far along it is. So it may not have the potential to run the same as these two, but you never know. Strange things have happened. Anyways, then we have Mark, and thank you to Honey Badger, because I was not familiar with Mark being a sympathy play to DWAC, because I was always focused on PHUN as the sympathy play. But Mark and PHUN, these two charts here, are both sympathy plays. And if you're listening, not watching, PHUN is spelled PHUN, and Mark is MARK with a K. So guys, Mark hit as high as 50 cents and got rejected in the after hours. It's currently trading at 48 cents. It is possible it may try to retest that 50 and close above it, because we still have another 45 minutes at time of recording. And then we have PHUN, guys, and PHUN did a nice little run here, as you see by my crazy tweet out earlier. I'm not a Valley girl, but I was like, oh my God, what the F is going on? This was just nuts. Like all of a sudden it just bursted out of nowhere and it wanted to run, guys, but it got rejected hard off of like 148. And it's currently down to 139, but it's been bouncing between that 139 and like 146 for the last hour or so. So who knows what it's going to do. I am sure that market makers want an opportunity to try to bring these down a little bit if they can, prior to Monday, But who knows? Because again, the volatility is there. But the reason I say that is because everything always goes back to the option chain. And you got to think about hedge funds wanting the ability to get their hands on options, guys. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But I definitely think Monday is going to be wild for all 6 of these tickers. I'm going to pull up DWAC for you. Okay, guys, so this is the 1-year chart. Well, it actually goes back to October because, as you know, DWAC was a SPAC. And as you can see, way back here on October 21st, you see this first big green candle. And it started the day at $10.04. And it closed at $45.50. Guys, the following day, it opened up with a gap up with a low of $67.96 and a high of $175. So the reason I'm showing you this is because, guys, from $10, this ran all the way to $175 back in October, the end of October. So the potential that this has to be a runner is absolutely insane. And could it happen again? Anything's possible. And I believe that there is a huge short interest in this stock. I am not 100% certain because I'll be honest with you. I was not, well, I am now, but I was not in DWAC. But interestingly, just this past week, I had people asking me about it. I guess Trump's supposed to make some announcements, and I was actually thinking about it, and wish I bought some calls, this week for expiration in August or September, because my thoughts were that if Trump announces that he's going to run for office, then that would certainly make this probably go crazy again. But now we have one catalyst that could follow with a second. Could you even imagine? That would be just absolutely crazy. So anyways, just a little TA on this for you. Now that we're trading up above the 20, this 13-day moving average, we should start to see crossover, guys, and start curling up. So, back here we didn't have all those moving averages because the stock has not traded, guys, for a full year yet. So it's kind of hard to see the averages. I even had to take out my 200 SMA and make it a 100, that red line here. So I'm going to be looking for this week, this to start curling up and for us to get a nice move up. And I definitely think Monday is going to be wild. So keep in mind all of these names. We have, again, DWAC, PHUN, and Mark. Again, PHUN and Mark are the sympathy plays, so they run with DWAC. Twitter may be a good shorting opportunity, or if it gets low enough, a good buying opportunity if you want to go long, but be careful if you do that right away. And then obviously Tesla, because now that Elon will have his full attention back there, I think that it is a great opportunity for Tesla to go on a run. And I'm going to do a video this weekend letting you know my thoughts on what's going on in this market right now. And interestingly enough, this kind of plays into it. So it's a great setup for that. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you all have a fabulous weekend. Thank you for watching.